Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about understanding minimum width. So how do we make elements wrap at different screen sizes? So on the screen here we can see a preview of a marketing page, and this marketing page has two images, or really two tiles here. And these tiles have an image and some content underneath them, and it looks really great. But what I need to remember is that I need my application to look great not only on the desktop view, which I have here, but also on the mobile view. So what I want to do now is actually look at what this looks like on our mobile view. So what I'll do is I'll inspect element, and we still have it in desktop view, and I'll start to shrink the size, and we can see that our tiles are slowly becoming resized. But what I'm seeing is that these tiles are actually getting really skinny and small, and it doesn't really look too great on mobile. And more than that, it's actually very difficult to read this content when we're going on mobile. What we want instead is actually for tile 1 to be here, and then for us to scroll down and tile 2 to occur or appear underneath. So how do we do that? What we're going to do is we're going to set minimum width. So let's jump over to our editor. And what we can see is we can see this group over here, which has the row set up. And then in this group, there is two child groups, which contains the tiles. And what I want to do is I want to select this first child group, and I want to change the minimum width. So when the screen width hits this minimum width, this tile won't be allowed to go any smaller. And I want to set that to 250 pixels. So what I'm saying here is that this group must always be at least 250 pixels wide. To maintain this minimum width in pixels, Bubble automatically wraps the elements to the right of the group, preventing any child groups from shrinking below its minimum width. And then I'll go to my other group and I will set that minimum width as well. So let's preview the page and see what this has changed now. So if I again go through this process and I start to narrow the width, and as soon as we hit our minimum width now, so it's going to just about now hit 250, we can see that it expands again to fit the size, and the next group or the next tile wraps to the next row. And that just allows our content to look great not only in desktop but also in mobile. So that for that reason we want to set a minimum width on our tiles. Now that we've completed that one, what I actually wanted to do and what I've done is I've increased the number of tiles. So we've gone from 2 tiles to 4 tiles. And the reason why is I want more content on my marketing page. Now, what I did to increase the number of tiles is I simply copied this tile twice. So the settings are the exact same and it has a minimum width of 250, but I want to make sure that it still looks good on a mobile screen. So let's go back to our preview mode and we can inspect, and we can see that it looks good on a desktop. And as I reduce the size, we can see that the 4th tile has wrapped to the bottom. But what I see when it's wrapped to the bottom is it's wrapped to the bottom in a really wide size. So it started to fill up the entire width, whereas in fact, I actually want it to stay at this size, and I want it to wrap a little bit differently. I want it to wrap into a 2x2 grid. So what I'm seeing here is that when I've added this additional tiles, it's not wrapping correctly. And what I need to do is I actually need to set up the way that I've got my tile groups differently, and I need to add conditionals to tell Bubble when to wrap. So let's go through the process of actually doing this. So what I want to do is I want it to wrap into a 2x2 grid. So instead of wrapping this 4th tile underneath and going really wide, I actually want both of these to wrap underneath at the exact same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set up groups, and I'm going to group the tile elements into groups of 2. But before I even do that, what I actually want to do is I want to reset my tile groups. And what I mean by that is earlier we set the minimum width to 250, but I actually just want to change this back to 10 for all of them. So just popping in really a nominal minimum width. And what this means is that it won't wrap around. So if we just quickly preview, just to understand what change I just made there, what that change does means that it just really gets squished tight. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift click on the first two tiles, right click, and then group the elements into a row container. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the next two. So now I've got two different groups in row containers. So what I actually want to do is I want to build out this responsive functionality so that this group of two wraps underneath this group of two when the screen width gets narrower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a condition, and I'm going to go when current page width is less than 1400, I want the minimum width to go to 100%. So by defining a minimum width as a percentage, it refers to the percentage of the parent group's space that the element can occupy. And in this case, at that breakpoint of 1400 pixels, the tile group will occupy 100% of its parent group width. And I'll just copy this condition and I'll pop it over here. And let's preview that. Let's see what this one looks like. So we've got it here. And then bang, I hit my 1400. So I'm on 1401, hit 1400, and it wraps around onto the next row. So I can see that it is working in the way that I want it to. But it is a little bit wide now that I look at it. So what I might actually do is I might just adjust that one to 1000. And the reason why is I just want it to look a little bit nicer. So let's try that again. So we go down to 1000 and we knock into the next one. So that looks really good to me. Now, my next step, however, so if I keep going, what you can see is as I go to the mobile, it still looks pretty bad. And the reason why is I actually want this second tile to wrap underneath this first tile. So how do I set that one up? What we're going to do now is we're going to go into these groups and I'm going to paste a condition, which is the same condition that we had before. And I'm going to go when the current page width is less than 600, we increase the minimum width to be 100%. So basically I'm setting a minimum width on each individual tile. So I'll pop that on this one, and then I'll pop that on this one, and I'll pop that on this one. So we're setting an additional breakpoint. So at 1000, we split into 2, and then we split into even narrower. So if we go there, we snap at 1000, and then if I go down at 600, we can see, so we just snap at 600, it wraps down to the next row again. So that's how, when we have a series of tiles, so tile groups, what we can do is we can set up these conditionals just to make that responsive behavior to work in the way that we want to. So as we can see here, we've set this into groups of 2, and then on those groups of 2, we've set conditions so that it adds a breakpoint in terms of the responsiveness. And then on the individual tile elements, we've set another condition so that when it is in this mode, once it hits 600, we get it to wrap around to the next row. So that's how we can use conditions to really manage the look and the feel of our application and the responsiveness of our elements.